The following is a talk entitled The Discovery of Hiroshima Atomic Bomb Fallout Debris and Advanced Light Source Diagnostic Contribution. It was presented on August 26, 2020, during a plenary session of the Advanced Light Source user meeting held as a Zoom webinar. Our team consists of two independent PhD geoscientists, Mark de Urestieta and me, at the time working in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Professor Hans Rudolf Wenck of the University of California, and Dr. Nobumichi Tamura at the Advanced Light Source Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Results have been published in the 2019 March issue of the journal Anthropocene. During this presentation, I would like to demonstrate that the rich and diverse association of melts encountered some 6 kilometers to the south of the atomic bomb hypocenter at Hiroshima constitute fallouts from the atomic cloud. I will touch on the history, samples and method, introduce what the melts look like, their concentration in beach sands, chemical composition, formation temperature, conclusions and follow-up studies. I will highlight the decisive contribution that ALS analysis have made to this study. Let us start by examining the nuclear fission device that was used in Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. The core of the device consists of a gun tube. After ignition, cordite powder bags drive together uranium rings at high speed. An instant critical mass is reached and a chain reaction of neutrons knocking apart atomic nuclei is started, where each atom's lost mass is converted to energy. Of the 64 kilograms of uranium in Little Boy, only 1 kilogram became energy. It was the equivalent of detonating 15 tons of TNT. The explosion of the device, some 580 meters above the city, created at first a fireball. Let us look at the evolving Hiroshima cloud. There are 3 steps in the evolution of the atomic cloud, documented by aerial pictures and films taken by the 3 US airplanes participating in the mission. Each step corresponds to changing conditions on the ground. To the left is a picture of the fireball plasma cloud, formed at the moment of the explosion. The fireball didn't touch the ground, so no crater was formed, but it produced intense gamma ray and neutron radiation. An atomic mushroom cloud, loaded with vaporized and powdered ground debris, started forming immediately after the explosion. The cloud height was about 8,000 meters after 4 minutes and ascended to about 16,000 meters after 15 minutes. With the decrease of temperature, vaporized materials began to condense and solidify, forming small aerodynamically shaped particles. Some ground debris lifted in the clouds were partially melted. A pyrocumulonimbus cloud started forming some 10 to 15 minutes after the explosion, fueled by the firestorms that were devastating the city. This developing cloud is seen on the last images taken by the returning US planes. Starting 20 minutes after the explosion, rain laden with mud, dust, and soot, the so-called black rain, began to fall over the city. The physical destruction of Hiroshima. An area of about 2.6 square kilometers, located below the hypocenter, experienced total destruction. There, at the moment of the explosion, surface temperature reached up to 4,000 degrees centigrade and the atmospheric pressure climbed up to 19 tons per square meter. It is estimated that over this area, some 50,000 tons of urban materials were converted to dust and blown up into the air, and that over 45,000 tons of wooden materials were burned out. The area of widespread destruction reached 12 square kilometers. Around 80,000 people were killed as a direct result of the blast, and another 35,000 were injured. During the months of August 1945, immediately after the atomic bomb exploded over the city of Hiroshima, scientists from the Riken Research Institute, the Osaka and Kyoto universities collected over 100 soil and other samples at sites devastated by the bomb. Further samples were collected thereafter. The objectives consisted only of radiation measurements, and until our study was published, there was no knowledge that material fallouts had been raining down from the atomic cloud. We sampled 6 beaches around the Moto Ujina Peninsula, located between 5.4 and 6 kilometers south of the atomic bomb hypocenter, in a zone not affected by fires nor by structural damage. Our database consists of 13 blind samples taken randomly within the upper 10 centimeters of beach sand in the intertidal zone. 4 other beach sand samples were similarly collected from the island of Miyajima, some 16 kilometers southwest of the bomb hypocenter. All our samples contain melt debris. Very few samples are available to determine the distribution of fallout debris in the greater Hiroshima area. At this time, we have established the presence of glass spherules in all investigated samples from the Miyajima Island, some 16 kilometers to the southwest of the hypocenter, to an isolated sample collected about 35 kilometers to the north-northwest of the hypocenter. The largest abundance and diversity in fallout debris is registered at the Moto Ujina Peninsula, closest to the hypocenter. Method: the samples were washed and dried before being sieved in 8 grain sizes ranging from granules to clay. Each grain size was examined under a binocular microscope, and all aerodynamically shaped glasses and melt debris were picked, separated into various categories, and counted. Sample measurements include weight, number of sedimentary grains, and number of fallouts per analyzed grain size. The average grain size distribution at Moto Ujina shows the beach sands to be coarse to very coarse-grained, an unlikely environment to preserve glasses. Fallouts were then described and photographed. A subset was analyzed by SEM-EDS, and selected debris were submitted for synchrotron microdiffraction analysis. This is an example of fallouts collected from one sample, showing an abundance of spherules and glass filaments. Because they were formed only 75 years ago, the melt debris are present at the surface of the beach and still include the delicate glass filaments. Glasses are a dominant component in the samples. Aerodynamically shaped glasses include spherules, occasionally vesicular, often welded together and tainted, vesicular glasses, vesicular teardrops, and vesicular filaments. Other aerodynamically shaped fallouts include magnetic and non-magnetic debris, agglomerates cemented and covered with silica glass, and other debris that appear to consist of rubber. In our publication, we describe 6 separate groups of fallouts and provide a photographic atlas comprising over 150 specimens. Here is an example showing the diversity of glass filaments. Ours is the first published atlas of fallout debris from a nuclear explosion. We compared our melt debris with different types of natural fallouts. Some microtectile fallouts and debris supposedly resulting from an aerial cosmic impact are morphological analogues to some of our melts. Both these types of fallouts are spread over well-delineated strewn fields at a scale of thousands of square kilometers. and such fields have not been identified in any region of the archipelago of the Japanese islands. We conclude that our melt debris are not related to these two types of natural fallouts. Micrometeorites are magnetic spherules similar to the one found at Moto Ujina. While it is possible that some microspherules in our materials are micrometeorites, the vast majority of the Moto Ujina melts are unrelated to this type of fallouts. Lightning-induced volcanic spherules are only found in the close surroundings of volcanoes, not the situation here. We also compared our melt debris with different types of man-made fallouts. While fly ash is an entirely different class of extremely small fallouts, fireworks produce a variety of opaque and magnetic spherules, often welded, much like the material encountered at Moto Ujina. Given the massive fireworks lit up every year in the Hiroshima Bay, it cannot be excluded that some of the spherules present at Moto Ujina be derived from fireworks. But the vast majority of the Moto Ujina fallouts are glassy and therefore unrelated to fireworks. Fallout particles from aerial nuclear explosions, like the one at Hiroshima, are poorly documented besides spherules, welded spherules, much like the one encountered at Moto Ujina. The better studied fallouts are from the Trinity test, a near-ground explosion that produced pooled glasses lining the crater and fallouts in the form of aerodynamically shaped green-colored glasses. All nuclear tests were conducted in desert or atoll, where the bedrock is uniform. The varied composition of the urban environment destroyed at Hiroshima is likely to have produced more complex and probably different types of fallouts compared to the test sites. We conclude that no described natural or man-made fallouts accurately match the melt debris encountered at Moto Ujina. We refer to them as Hiroshimites. They are uniquely characterized by the presence of vesicular glass fallout debris, vesicular glass filaments, coated mixed debris, complex glass-cemented debris, carbon-oxygen-rich rubber-like debris, and ejecta with glass coat. We screened nearly 1 kilogram of dry beach sand in Moto Ujina and encountered about 18 grams of melt debris. This represents about 30 kilograms of melts in 1 ton of dry sand. Based on this measurement, we estimate that the uppermost 10 centimeters of sand in the 6 beaches around Moto Ujina may contain about 35 tons of melt debris, and similarly that the shelf area of 1 square kilometer may hold over 2,000 tons of such debris. These values only serve to demonstrate that a massive and nearby destruction event is at the origin of the fallouts at Moto Ujina. The average chemical composition of clear glass is dominated by calcium oxide and subordinate silicon dioxide, aluminum oxide, magnesium oxide, and sulfur trioxide. So there is significant variation as shown here with an example of a silicon aluminum-rich spherule. We conclude that the silica-rich granite, which makes up the bedrock in the larger Hiroshima area, is not the main source of materials for the Moto Ujina glasses. We plotted the chemical composition of clear glasses on this triangular diagram, showing the relationship between calcium oxide, aluminum oxide, and silicon dioxide. According to this dataset, the solidus temperature of our glasses ranges from 1400 to 1600 degrees centigrade. SEM backscatter images show flow structures, often with bubbles, and microcrystals of various chemical composition, often including iron. The microcrystals are dendritic to needle-like. SEM-based analyses are unable to resolve the composition of some of these minute microcrystals, and that's when ALS-based analyses were called for. Advanced light source microdiffraction analysis revealed that the chemical composition of some microcrystals correspond to mullite, anortite, and hematite. Mullite and anortite were found together in one sample. This was a remarkable observation since no assemblage of these two phases has yet been encountered in nature. This significant result from ALS analysis confirms the unique genesis of the Hiroshimites. The identification of mullites through ALS analysis has been key to further constraining formation temperatures. At ambient pressure, mullite has a high melting point which varies between 1587 and 1890 degrees centigrade, depending on the silicon-aluminum ratio. It appears likely that the temperature of the melted and vaporized materials that later quenched into glass may have been in excess of 1900 degrees centigrade. Such a high formation temperature for a melt debris created aerially is highly unusual in nature, but falls within the range of temperatures of the atomic cloud. Conclusions. We have shown that the aerodynamically shaped melt debris encountered in the beach sands at Moto Ujina are fallouts, the result of a high-velocity aerial formation. Quenching of the glasses took place under extreme temperature conditions, possibly in excess of 1900 degrees centigrade. They have a complex morphology and chemical composition without analog, and did not originate from the bedrock. They have a recent origin with short residence time within the sands, and the presence of rubber-like debris point to an Anthropocene age. We call them Hiroshimites as they are unknown outside the Hiroshima area. The massive deposition of fallouts at Hiroshima, possibly in thousands of tons, implies a nearby major destruction event. We conclude that the only mechanism that fulfills all the above observation is the nuclear explosion of August 6, 1945. Follow-up studies. Our study is a preliminary account based on the analysis of relatively few melt debris. Initial attempts to measure remnant radioactivity have been unsuccessful but demand additional work. A host of further laboratory analyses should be carried out to clarify the chemical and isotopic composition of the debris, the composition of inclusions, and the content of the vesicles. Additional microcrystalline phases should be investigated by ALS. Secondary glass coatings and melt viscosity to be analyzed in order to propose melting and condensation models. There is also a need to clarify the origin and relative chronology of the various fallout melts and to confirm the presence of rubber. Further sampling in and around Hiroshima should be carried out, as well as at Nagasaki. One extension of our study leads into urban forensics, that is the attempt to link the chemistry of fallout debris to the original materials of the city. We postulate that the chromium-iron assemblage encountered in magnetic debris may originate from stainless steel, and that the calcium-rich composition of glasses may originate from concrete, bricks, or possibly roof tiles. ALS analysis has been the key to demonstrate the unique association of phases encountered in some Hiroshimites and their extremely high formation temperature, possibly in excess of 1900 degrees centigrade. The microcrystals analyzed by means of ALS, were quenched from a plasma cloud that formed over the city of Hiroshima. ALS analyses have provided direct evidence linking the origin of the Hiroshimites to the devastating event of August 6, 1945. Thank you for your attention.